where we're going to unpack what is, without a doubt, the shortest but arguably one of the most explosive books in the entire Old Testament. We're looking at the Book of Obadiah. It's one of those texts that really forces us to confront some pretty uncomfortable truths about human nature, but at the same time, it points us toward an incredibly hopeful future. We're going to explore profound pride, dangerous apathy, and ultimately, this grand vision of God's ultimate kingdom.
21. That is the total number of verses in the entire book of Obadiah. It's incredibly brief. In fact, it's the fourth of the 12 minor prophets. But do not let its tiny size fool you. This little book packs a massive, timeless message about God's justice and sovereignty. It uses some really powerful, hard-hitting language to deliver a warning that is literally just as relevant to us today as it was thousands of years ago.
Section 1. The Darkest Hour. The Fall of Jerusalem.
To truly understand this message, we've got to set the stage and zoom in on a very specific, devastating moment in ancient biblical history. We are heading into what was arguably the darkest hour for the people of Judah. The year was 586 BC. Keep that date in mind, because in that year, an unimaginable catastrophe struck the nation.
Picture this. Babylon's forces, led by King Nebuchadnezzar, descend upon Jerusalem. They completely shatter the city walls, they burn the sacred temple to the ground, and they take a massive portion of the population captive, just dragging them off to Babylon. For Judah, this was a crushing military defeat, a total national disaster, and a profound spiritual crisis all rolled into one. Everything they held dear was just reduced to ashes.
Section 2. Tale of Two Brothers. A family feud turned national betrayal.
Now, as horrific as that Babylonian invasion was, the real heartbreak of 586 BC, the truly bitter pill to swallow, came from a cruel betrayal by a neighboring nation. Historically speaking, it was an inside job. Enter our mysterious prophet Obadiah, which beautifully translates to worshipper of Yahweh. God raised him up specifically to address this betrayal and declare divine judgment on a nation called Edom. Now, we actually know next to nothing about Obadiah's personal background. No family details, no profession. We just have his powerful, laser-focused message directed straight at Edom right after the fall of Jerusalem.
Now, what's really interesting here is that this wasn't just a conflict between two random neighboring countries. This was a tragic family feud. If you trace their ancestry all the way back to the book of Genesis, you'll see that the Israelites and the Edomites actually originated from twin brothers. The Israelites descended from Jacob, the one who received God's promise to Abraham, right? And the Edomites descended from Esau. Even though those two brothers actually reconciled back in Genesis, their descendants got locked into this bitter, centuries-long rivalry.
Section 3. The Danger of Pride. The False Security of Petra.
So, what did Edom actually do during the fall of Jerusalem that was so terrible? Well, it starts with their overwhelming, blinding arrogance. The Edomites lived in the region of Mount Seir, nestled deep within the towering red rock canyons of Petra. The geography there is just incredibly rugged and mountainous, and because they lived inside these natural, impenetrable defensive walls, they genuinely believed their nation was invincible, like no enemy could ever reach them. But that geological security bred a really toxic self-reliance. They were overflowing with pride, fully trusting in their own wealth, their own wisdom, and their own defenses, rather than trusting in God.
But God's response to this arrogance is incredibly dramatic. Obadiah 1:4 declares, "Though you soar like the eagle and make your nest among the stars, from there I will bring you down." You see, the Bible constantly reminds us that pride is the absolute beginning of alienation from God. When we think we're in total control, we forget who actually guides history. God makes it crystal clear that He will always bring down those who trust in their own earthly power and geographic fortresses over Him.
Section 4. The Sin of Apathy. Standing by in the day of ruin. While pride was their foundation, Edom's second sin is honestly even more insidious, and frankly, a bit uncomfortable to talk about. It was apathy, a deep, cold-heartedness toward a brother's suffering. When Jerusalem was falling, Edom should have remembered their shared bloodline and helped the refugees. Instead, they did the exact opposite. Let's just walk through this horrifying escalation. Notice how it moves from passive observation to active, malicious betrayal. First, they just stood at a distance, watching their brother burn. Second, they actively rejoiced and gloated over Judah's ruin. Third, they spoke arrogant, boastful words. Fourth, they actually went in and looted the destroyed city. And finally, the ultimate betrayal. They blocked the escape routes and physically handed the desperate refugees straight over to their Babylonian enemies.
So the crucial point is captured right here in Obadiah 1:12. You should not gloat over your brother in the day of his misfortune. God saw every single thing Edom did.
He doesn't take pleasure in those who rejoice at another's downfall or who stand by coldly when others stumble. This verse gently turns the mirror toward us today. It's a profound warning to modern Christians against the very relatable sin of apathy. It asks us, do we rely on our own status? Do we just scroll past a brother or sister suffering? Or do we step in with the compassion and mercy of Christ to lift them up?
Section 5. The Ultimate Kingdom. From local judgment to cosmic hope.
Now, the story absolutely does not end in the ruins of the ancient Middle East. As the prophecy unfolds, the narrative zooms way out from this local, ancient conflict between Judah and Edom, and it expands to reveal God's macro plan for the entire world. The prophet elevates the message to a cosmic scale, declaring the day of the Lord is near for all nations. God isn't merely some regional deity. He's not just the God of Israel. He is the sovereign judge of all people, everywhere. He sees the actions of every single nation, and his perfect justice will ultimately prevail over the whole earth. For believers, this directly hints at the grand New Testament promise of Jesus Christ's return to finally right all wrongs.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the Book of Obadiah fits perfectly into the grand biblical narrative. It's like a giant puzzle coming together. We start in the era of Genesis with humanity's fall and the start of that bitter brotherly rivalry. Then we reach the era of Obadiah, where we see God actively judging pride and apathy in real historical time. And finally, that local judgment points us entirely forward toward the era of Revelation, where Christ returns to establish an eternal kingdom. It is all one cohesive, divine story.
We have to always remember that in the Bible, judgment is never God's final word. His ultimate goal is restoration and redemption. Obadiah promises salvation for Zion. God will restore his people and give them back their inheritance. All evil and toxic pride will finally be eradicated, proving that God's justice never truly delays. For those who humbly seek him, there is an eternal hope that completely transcends whatever temporary ruin surrounds them.
All of this builds up to the triumphant crescendo of the entire book. The final verse declares with absolute certainty, "The kingdom shall be the Lord's." The evils of this world will not win. God is in control. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this to think about. If all earthly fortresses eventually fall, and if God's kingdom is the only one that's going to stand forever, who truly rules your heart today? Are you living for your own temporary kingdom, or are you ready for his eternal one?